calling it James, the Book for You. Good thinking here, some of the best. It's not a doctrinal book, it's just general instruction for any Christian. And we've read the first 5 verses, so I'm not going to read that to you again. But here's what we talked about. Number 1, we are encouraged to have a different attitude toward hardship than we normally have. I said it that way because that's the way I wanted to say it. Very intelligent. Because it's true. We have to work on our attitude, myself included. Now, just because we old duffers are over the road and it looks like all the past is kind of forgotten and all smoothed out, does not mean that it was smooth when we lived it any more than how smooth it is for you to live it today. We're not going to get by without this. So we have to work on our attitude. I guess I don't mind that. I can get pretty sourpuss, so it's okay for me to work on that. You too, by the way. Sure. And here's the second thought, and that is to realize big time that trying times will eventually have their benefit. Now, what do you think about that? Eventually have their benefit. I didn't used to put 2 and 2 together on that aspect. I think I felt like a lot of people that nothing good ever comes out of a tire that goes down and ruined it. I still haven't figured that all out yet. But that's not the sum total of life. Life eventually, with its hardships, has benefits to it. And here's the third thought. We must let God's process work in us. God is processing us. Right? Oh. Better let him have his process. Don't fight it. Don't fuss with it. Don't have second and third repeats just because you don't like the first one. Let's see. Remember the story of the elephant last week? Probably remember that more than the sermon. Anyway, let's get on. We're going to read from James 1, 6 through 8 this morning. Remember, we read verse 5, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally. This is written to Christians, so Christians are on praying grounds with God. So you ask him for wisdom. And it's interesting that this verse follows the previous verses, because indeed we do need to pray about handling our hardships. Right. Of all that's got your attention in life, what has your attention for the 90% of the time? The things that you're going through and the hardships that you have. If something doesn't break, something will wear out. And the paint doesn't peel, then you can work on the roof. I mean, it's one thing after another. And if that doesn't get you stirred up enough, then try to dry out your basement. Anybody ever been there?
Every day. We're going through that now with our cost base.
Sure. If it isn't 6 things, it's going to be 7.
Great.
So that's why he says, ask for wisdom. Approach this properly. So verse 6. So in regard to prayer and Christian living, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering, not doubting. Boy, if you can get to the place where you don't doubt anymore, you have really climbed to Mount Everest. Nothing wavering, for he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. So we're not to waver. Verse 7, for let not that man who wavers think or expect that he will receive anything of the Lord. Now look at that. That means that your doubtfulness, your wavering disposition turns God off. You ever heard of that? You ever thought of that? So much said about God's always coming our way. This sounds like he could be going the other direction if we waver. Oh. Then he describes it a little further. A double-minded man or a two-minded person is unstable in all his ways. So you have to be a person that doesn't waver. You're aiming straight ahead. Or good things, even the things you want, are not going to come your way. Verse 9, I guess, is the next. Well, let's just read through 8 at this point. Kind of gives us something to go on here. And the lesson number next point is this. We are to solidly believe in our Christian way of life and not waver. Now you can already see that in that verse. It includes prayer, your Christian life. We're not to waver. This means that we're to let the Christian way of life be our North Star, our compass, our way of life. And then once we have the North Star in our life, we manage our life with real strength and determination. And I'll tell you right now, I love to see people of strength and determination in the right way, of course. Don't you?
Amen.
Sure. In your praying, be an unwavering person, solid, secure. I think a lot of our wavering comes from inside inferiority and insecurity. That's us. That's not God. But anyway, in your praying and in your conduct, strong, determined, dedicated. You know those are all good qualities. However, some people, and a lot of people, can and will pursue the other side of this, like the bottle or the tobacco or the drugs or the women, or gambling. Now those are things that you can lay your hands on and your taste buds too. They're right there physical, that you can hold to yourself. These other things are a little different than that, but they're the best and they're the good. The governor just signed that we can now gamble on our sports in Iowa. Now, we emailed her and gave her 2 reasons why it's a no-no. I think it's only going to add to the unpleasant in gambling in Iowa. She took a long, long time to sign that. I kept watching her, the announcement. The governor is still considering, and the governor is still considering. That told me she was going to sign in favor of it, because she wanted to show the picture that I really gave this some attention. It was probably on the outside corner of her desk, and she didn't look at it for you know how long. Pardon me for saying that, but finally signed it. We can gamble now on sports. I want to tell you something. I never go into a casino here in Iowa, and I will not go into a casino here in Iowa. I don't care if you're determined to only spend $15. I'm not going to go there, because somebody's going to know about it, and somebody's going to think about it, and somebody else is going to do the same thing. People give themselves to this. You ever see anything like this? Can you read it? Now, I hesitate to pronounce it because some words just don't wrap around my tongue very good. Marlboro, is that how it's pronounced? Burrow? I don't use it enough to know how to pronounce it. Yeah. There's 20 in this, they say. A young man came to our house and wanted some help. We talked, and I said, "You got any habits? Do you smoke?" He said, "Yeah." Well, I said, "Well, maybe that's part of the reason why you don't have groceries to eat tonight." I don't hesitate to talk to them. I said, "You want to know how to get rid of your smoking?" I said, "How many do you smoke a day?" 10. That's half of a pack. In 2 days we can take a pack, and that's pretty expensive in my mind. Especially to somebody who's asking me for groceries. I said, "You want to know how to quit that? You smoke 10 today. Go ahead the rest of the week, smoke 10 a day. Now next week, you only smoke 9 a day. And do that for a whole week. Then the next week, only smoke. You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
That will do it. How do I know that will do it? That's what I did with my hydrocodone. I've got a scissor sitting there right beside my recliner. back when I was going through this, I took a hydrocodone and I clipped off a fourth of a hydrocodone and put it in a container. Took the other part. I did that for a little while, and the next time I clipped off a half a hydrocodone. And I got it down just as low as I dare to go with my pain situation. It can be done. Some can do it cold turkey. I tried that with hydrocodone. If you want one of the most miserable times to feel through in your life, come down off of drugs. If it's only a hydrocodone. I've never been so miserable in all my days. It can be done. But here's something else. I'm grandpa, I'm great-grandpa. I'm a preacher here, or I try to be. Suppose Pam brings Cody out here, as she does about every day, and he comes running back here to the goats, and I'm sitting there doing you know what? Sucking on a cigarette. What have I done to Cody?
He thinks it's all right.
At his age, he'll conclude everything's okay because I'm the big older one doing it, but after a while he's going to think through that. You know what I mean? And what about all the other youngsters? I don't want them to come by my casket and look down in the casket and say, Grandpa was a great preacher, but he smoked on the side. Or he spiked his drinks when he went to such and so place. Don't waver. Make up your mind and don't waver. Let me say this. The American people are very resourceful people, and that's us. We came from the line of Jephthah, Noah's son. And it is one of the dandy bloodlines of the world. So since we're good, solid Americans, we can make things happen. What needs to happen? And the reason I say it that way is because just this week they celebrated D-Day. And I heard one description of it, of a man who has visited there twice. And he described a lot of everything that was involved that day. 150,000 men, and they climbed straight up the cliffs. But all of the equipment, the battleships, the cruisers, those that carried the men in, and I mean, the list went on, and all of that was manufactured back here in America in our plants. I lived through that time. I heard my uncles and aunts talking about working at the war plants. We produced that. And I've even seen it on video. And when you look at that and you see all that was done, and of course we got the victory, but all that was involved, you're just amazed. We are proud American citizens and a right to be so. So believe me, we can make the Christian life what we want it to be and what it should be. Because of who we are. That means that we're strong in our belief system. That belief means that we're strong in our prayer life. That means that we have courage. This is called manhood and womanhood. We're strong men and women. And we're teaching our children to come on and be strong adults too. They will be, according to how we help them. This means that we'll have real determination and we won't quit. I'm old enough to quit, but I'm not going to quit. There's no turning back. Do you have all of this in your life? You're American, you're a Christian, you're a good person. Do you have all this determined in your life? It comes from strong believing and not wavering. And by Joe, if I can say that, I'm still going to be on the oars when we reach the other shore. Now that was lesson number next. Now the last one is this. You ready? Otherwise, God backs off. What did it say there in verse 7? Person that waver, talking about his prayer primarily, receiveth not of the Lord. Now I'm sure there's people that don't care, but let me tell you, to have God makes all the difference in the world. Now sometimes we wish He would show up a little different, but Jesus doesn't show up and God doesn't show up the way that we think He ought to show up all the time. You can be an average person or less, but let me tell you, you can also be a God-blessed person, a God-energized person, and live an extra life and a productive life. And I think that appeals to me. So we all need God in our life in the right kind of way, whether we really know it or not. And I'm going to court Him. I'm going to do my best to court Him. You know, I was pretty nice to Dad when we went off to town in the old 36 Chevy during the summertime, because once in a great while, he'd stop by Reed's Ice Cream and we'd get an ice cream cone. Now that was worth being nice to Daddy about.
That was a big truth.
So when we have God, and He's there more than you think, it's going to show, and you will know if you have your spiritual antennas out there in the right direction. You will be different. There will be a non-wavering disposition. There's going to be a super steadiness, a super faithfulness, a super reliable disposition, and that's you. Matter of fact, it's called a pillar in the church. a pillar in the family, a solid rock in society, in the community. That's right. Now, this isn't going to be handed to us. We work for it, and we grit our teeth every day we get up, and we don't let go until we go to sleep at night, because we are determined people. It won't happen any other way. Can I read you something? Going to church and reading the Bible regularly may do more than save your soul. Doing this may extend your life. In a randomly selected survey of more than 4,000 people, ages 65 and older, in a primarily Protestant area of North Carolina, average blood pressure was lowest in those who attended church each week and who prayed or studied their Bible each day. Want to believe it? I guess just well. Sounds better than what else you can read about. They were 40% less likely to have high blood pressure. High readings are associated with heart attacks and strokes. Duke University researchers were the ones who carried out this study. Numerous studies have shown that religious people are less depressed, have healthier immune system, and deal better with addictions than non-religious people. No wonder the bottom's dropping out of the whatever with a lot of people. They're getting further and further away from God. They say we're 1/4 atheists in America now. However, according to the Duke University research, those who got their religion from the tube did not enjoy health benefits of religion. Those who watched religious television or listened to religious radio actually had higher blood pressure than those who did not. So stay home and lazy it in front of the TV, and your blood pressure will not get any better. So why not come to church? I believe it's a pretty good place. And you're liable to get your cigarettes talked about. And anything else that ought to be talked about. Did you say amen?
Amen.
Okay.